We saw that the situation completely escalated at the demonstrations in Tbilisi due to government decision to suspend negotiation for entry into the European Union. Did the opposition organize demonstrations, and who did that?
Actually, the demonstrations are grassroots in nature. They do not have any specific organizers. They're organized by people. So these protests are not affiliated with any political parties, and they reflect the will of ordinary Georgian citizens, driven by the frustration over the government's perceived betrayal of the country's European future. So no, they're not organized by political parties, opposition parties, but they're organized by people because the decision to betray this European path of Georgia is going against not only the will of people, because more than 80% of Georgians are pro-European, but also it's very anti-constitutional because it's also the betrayal of the Article 78 of our constitution, which mandates full efforts for all institutions for integration with the EU and NATO.
There was a talk that the recent parliamentary elections were stolen with the help of Russia. Is there any evidence for this, and what is the result?
Well, actually, there is no evidence of Russian involvement, but on the other hand, we do have very pro-Russian governing party, which is Georgian Dream Party. And the elections were marred by unprecedented falsifications, as documented by observers and also many Georgian non-governmental, and not only Georgian, non-governmental organizations. And Western nations, including the US and the EU, did not recognize the elections as legitimate. So we do not have any specific evidence of Russian involvement, but we have this pro-Russian government, which resulted in the 54% voting for the Georgian Dream Party, which sounds very unrealistic because according to those results, every second Georgian should be pro-Russian, which is not the case. As I mentioned, more than 80% of Georgian are pro-European, and when I say more than 80%, I mean in very late 80s and not still like 8 or 81. It's like 87, 88. So the public sentiment, public sentiment is that the ruling Georgian Dream Party manipulated the results to consolidate power and align the authoritarian practices, indirectly benefiting Russian interests. This is the public sentiment we have here.
It was a big paradox for me because on the one side we have like a deputy president of the Security Council of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, who is criticize Georgian president, and then we have this situation. How can that be in balance? I mean, what is going on? This is a huge paradox, actually.
Actually, that is not paradox. That makes sense because our president remains the only pro-Western institution in Georgia. So basically, we have this polarized situation where there is Georgian Dream backed up by Russia, who is always complimented by Medvedev and Putin. Putin also, they made a statement 2 days before the prime minister. Actually, it was on the same day when Prime Minister announced the halt of the EU accession talks that President Putin praised him. But then there is this our president who is very pro-Western and stands with people. So Medvedev criticizing our president just makes sense because Medvedev's remarks highlight Russia's dissatisfaction with Zurabishvili's support for the European Union and NATO integration and her resistance to government policies aligning with Russian interests. And for Georgians, Georgian media and Georgian citizens, they see Medvedev's criticism as further evidence of pro-Russian leanings of the Georgian government, reinforcing public support for Zurabishvili because Zurabishvili right now stands with people.
So every part of the puzzle comes to the place. And we saw very, very disturbing pictures from Georgia and due to those demonstrations. Is there any chance to make that more calm down in the next few days? And what is going on? I mean, it can't be continued so much on and on with that battlefield on the street.
Yeah, well, answering yes or no to that question about settling down is pretty difficult right now, because that pretty much depends how far the ruling party, the governing party, Georgian Dream Party, is willing to go. Because right now they act like they do not want to hear the voice of the people who stand on the streets. And the possibility of settling down depends largely on whether the government is willing to make concessions, such as for resuming EU talks or resuming our path to the European integration, or addressing protester demands. And our demand is new elections. And continued use of force, such as water cannons, tear gas, arrests, could escalate the unrest further, I would say, because right now there are more than 200 protesters arrested. We don't know the exact number, but it's above 200. A lot of people were beaten on the first day. Actually, is on the 28th of November. A lot of media representatives were targeted, and they were hospitalized because they were so fiercely beaten up. So public sentiment remains firm. Stopping protests without government compromising anything is seen as surrendering to authoritarianism and Russian influence, and we're not going to do it, hopefully. So that really depends how far they are willing to go. The
The
Georgian
last
Dream Party.
information I do have is that 40 people are in hospital because of their have injuries because of this.
It's actually more than 40. And I was watching Georgian TV channels this morning that a lot of hospitals are literally full. Like they cannot accept some people because they are full. And yeah, it's insane, beating up people. There was also a statement about having something mixed in water cannons with water. So it was a pepper spray and water together. So it was pretty much burning the skin of people who were standing on the Russell areas. That happened on the first day, though. That was not repeated on the other days. But arrests, beating up. There are also some footage where they are following the protesters to the subway stations. They're following on the streets to arrest them. So yeah, the situation is pretty harsh, and it cannot go limitlessly. And it also should be mentioned that a lot of employees of public institutions signed petitions denying the Georgian Dream Party's decision. So more than 5 ambassadors left their posts. One of them was Georgia's ambassador to the United States. He resigned. Another was Georgian ambassador to the Netherlands. And there are some few others too. And there are more than 200 employees of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that signed the petition denying the decision of the governing party. So they do not have the stability in the public institutions too.
And what is the stance of European Union? I mean, I know what is the basic opinion, but did they say something about this situation major in the last few days?
Well, the EU has expressed significant concerns, obviously. EU ambassador to Georgia, Pavel Herchinsky, condemned the use of force against peaceful protesters, calling it absolutely unacceptable. Also, EU's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, described the suspension of EU accession talks as heartbreaking because it's literally going against the will of Georgian people. And many other EU officials expressed their concerns, but the actual actions that were done just yesterday was that 3 Baltic states have taken a strong stance, and they announced national sanctions against those responsible for suppressing protests in Georgia. So that's Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Other than that, any real actions other than denouncing whatever is going on, we're still waiting, not yet. But we're hopeful for sanctions, visa bans, and whatever may come on the way. They're saying that everything is on the table, even the visa-free travel ban for Georgians. Like everything can be discussed right now. The situation is that escalated. So we'll see how it goes.